So you saw my last Pixio video and you said maybe a curved Pixio monitor is not for me. Well, I've got something for you. This is a PX 329. It's FreeSync, it's 32 inches and it's 1440p. It's not curved. What more do you need to know? Just buy it. Don't even wait for my review. Don't even wait for me to finish talking. Just buy. No, I don't know actually. Even before we get this thing completely unpacked, I want to point out the Pixio monitors generally now come with a VESA adapter. So if you're going to use the monitor with a normal VESA stand, you can. That's fine. I mean, you always could, just sometimes you had to order the bracket. Well, they include the bracket now, probably because I complained. And it's very much appreciated. It's noticed and appreciated. Thank you, Pixio. Good job. Pixio also sells some adjustable height stands, which could also have something to do with it. So if you don't like the fact that this aluminum stand is a fixed height, if you're a taller person like me, I mean, because I'm so tall, like I'm kind of a cheap bastard, and I really like monitor stands because I'm really tall, and so that means the workplace, like the work table, ends up kind of being like lower, and so then the monitors are low, and so I get this mighty hump from working the desk job 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 or 9 to 7 a.m. the next day, as the case may be. So having the monitor at a higher height, either because you buy a nice stand or a monitor arm, super into monitor arms, is sort of a nice thing. But it comes with a pretty cool sort of aluminum stand. This is like a hammered finish. This is a different finish that I'm used to. Now this monitor has 4 inputs as well as an audio out. It's 2 HDMI and 2 DisplayPort. DisplayPort 1 input will run at up to 165 Hertz. That 165 Hertz is an overclock, and you will have to use a premium quality DisplayPort cable in order to do that. The other DisplayPort input runs up to 144 Hertz. HDMI ports won't run that high. You can get 144 Hertz if you use a really good quality HDMI cable, but my recommendation, as always, is to use a DisplayPort cable. Even when testing on an APU, sometimes the HDMI will work with FreeSync, but not every time. So if you are going to use FreeSync with an APU, you're going to want to use the APU on a motherboard that has DisplayPort rather than HDMI. Now this is a VA type panel. It's an M315 DVR 01.0. If you want to look it up and sort of figure out what you're working with. That is 16 by 9, 178 degrees viewing area. It has an advertised response time of 5 milliseconds. So we're going to put that to the test. So we always like to do the high-speed camera footage test. This is a chase square test, which means that when we ramp up the camera footage to 180 FPS, we can slow things down and see how things are going to work at 144 Hertz. Now right now it's just refreshing at 60 Hertz. But when we ramp that, we can look for adjacent blocks that are missing, or we can look for adjacent blocks that are lit up. And if we get enough data, we can sort of estimate the true speed of the panel. You see, because the panel can get information from the computer at 144 or 165 Hertz with the overclock, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the panel can display things at 144 or 165 Hertz, because you know, 1/144th of a second is so many milliseconds, and because the display is updating 144 times per second, when it can't keep up, then we will see a square on the display for longer than it was supposed to be on the display, and then we can estimate what the true latency is. So by looking at this high-speed footage, we can see that the time to go from white to black, there's some squares that are adjacent, but it's not really too bad. And so this panel has an advertised speed of about 5 milliseconds. How many 5 milliseconds are there in 1 second? There's about 200. So you could get up to about 200 frames per second with the rated speed of this display, but that 5 milliseconds actually means gray to gray. How long does it take to go from light gray to dark gray? So it's really kind of a best case scenario. And we can see from the high speed footage that the true black to white latency of this monitor is somewhere around 7.5 milliseconds, something like that. But that's still way better than 1/60th of a second, which is 16 milliseconds. So It's more than twice as good. So this is, I would say that this is, you know, accurate. The advertising here is actually accurate. I've seen panels that are much worse, like the Samsung UD28590D advertises a 1 millisecond panel response time, but its response time is actually worse than 1/60th of a second when you look at it on high speed. Now with this basic stand, all you get is tilt. No pivot, no height adjustment, nothing like that. But as I said, get a VESA mount. Pixio sells some really nice VESA mounts, VESA stands, or you can get a monitor arm. I like monitor arms personally. Now the monitor on-screen controls are controlled by this little sort of 5-way joystick with a button. This is really similar to the controls that you see on like Samsung TVs. So you just sort of move this around and that'll move you through the on-screen displays. Now one odd thing about this is that it doesn't come with Freesync enabled by default. And that's the reason for that is that the Freesync range is a little less than what the monitor supports. So gonna go into the menus and I'm just hitting that 4-way joystick, 5-way joystick, whatever, to turn on Freesync in the menus. And then once Freesync is on, it says, oh, it's good for 48 to 60 Hertz, but then you just go to display settings and you go to advanced display settings, then display adapter properties. There's a faster way to get there. And then you go to monitor and change the drop-down menu. So it's got 120 and 144 Hertz. So I'm just gonna hit 144 Hertz, apply, and keep changes. And yep, sounds good. And so now my Freesync range is 48 to 144 Hertz. Oh, and before I forget, both HDMI ports are HDMI 2.0. If one of them's HDMI 1.1, usually I'll say something, but at this point, you should be dealing with technology that's basically HDMI 2.0 across the board because goodness gracious. So selling the level 1 KVM, I've become kind of a connoisseur of Displayport cables because most of the problems people have are the cables. It feels like a quality cable, which is an upgrade because sometimes the cables that come with these, I complain a little bit, but we get the dual ferrite bead on both sides. The gauge of the wire seems pretty good. I bet this cable can drive 165 Hertz. So there you have it. 93.3% or 93.9% of the sRGB color gamut, 84.7% of the Adobe RGB, and 77.6% of the DCI P3. Now the system that we're testing in is in the Fractal Meshify Mini C. It's the MSI B350 Gaming Pro. It's like the B350M Gaming Pro. This is running a Raven Ridge Ryzen 5 plus Vega APU with 16 gigabytes of memory. I've also got an RX 460 in there right now just for diagnostics and experimental purposes, but it's configured so that the APU is enabled and the graphics card. But gosh darn it, this tiny little micro ATX case is just so cute. Here I am back in the monitor corner. It's where I belong. Yeah, the PX329 is as advertised. Pixio is the little company that could. I mean, it's like the value monitors, but at least in the US, it's a domestic supplier. So you get the warranty and all the other exciting stuff, but it's also a pretty good price for what they are. I mean, they've really sort of carefully selected things because there are a lot of gaming monitors out there that really charge a premium. But with this, you get 32 inches, you get 2560 by 1440, you get pretty good sRGB coverage and decent Adobe RGB coverage. It's you know, PX329. We see in our high-speed footage that the black to white time is on the order of like 7-8 milliseconds, which is really good. So that's right in line with the 144 Hertz advertised refresh rate. You can overclock it to 165 Hertz, and you will start to see some pixels change even at that super high refresh rate. But it's really the panel, the monitor can keep up with it, but the panel is a little slower than that 165 Hertz. It's even a little tiny bit slower than 144 Hertz, but it is insanely way faster than 60 Hertz. So if you're into Twitch shooters and you want FreeSync and you want 32 inches, 2560 by 1440, not in a curved display, then you should check out the Pixio and check out other reviews and other stuff that's going on with Pixio. But so far, I like it. I mean, they've done a pretty good job. The bezel and the fit and finish, all those little nice aesthetic features. It's got kind of a matte finish, and the matte finish on the stand, and the bezels are relatively small for a monitor like this. It's very thin and lightweight, which I like, so you can use inexpensive monitor arms. I mean, I'm really impressed with Pixio in terms of this particular monitor, but also their consistency. So maybe this particular model is not the right one for you. You should check out some of the other reviews. But as long as they keep doing a good job with monitors, I'm gonna keep reviewing them and doing terrible things to them and trying not to break them when I jam the DisplayPort cable in sideways. Whoops. Or just HDMI in the DisplayPort area or whatever. There's other little features too, like you can turn a reticle on with the on-screen display. That's, you know, that I think that originally came from Korean monitors, but you know, it's present here on the Pixio monitor as well. You've got a couple of different reticle styles and that sort of thing. So yeah, good job Pixio. I'm Wendell, I'm signing out, and you'll find me in the Level 1 forums.